Hey, Guitar Nerd here with a quick review on The Last of Us Part 1. For those of you who may not know, The Last of Us was originally released on the PS3 in 2013 and was quickly remastered on the PS4 in 2014, and now it has released on the PS5. Although this year's release of the game may technically meet the definition of being a remake given that its graphics and new features have been rebuilt from scratch, there has been a lot of debate as to whether or not it actually plays more like a remake or another remastered version of the game. So by the end of this video, I'll be sure to cover everything in detail to hopefully settle this debate and help determine if it is really worth the money to get the game for yourself or not. To start, we'll take a closer look at the new features that they have added. Obviously, the first big change they made is completely revamping the graphics to get it up to standard with next-gen capabilities. While the PS4 remastered version already did a great job with this, the PS5 version here does an even better job. I did experience a couple of brief rendering issues towards the beginning of the game, but this was the only time that I experienced it, and I imagine these issues may already be fixed by the time you're watching this video, so this honestly shouldn't be much of a problem if at all. They've also made the environment a little bit more interactive as well. This may feel a little limited at times still, since you won't be able to move every object you come across, but you get to experience more intense gunfights when glass is shattering all around you, and enjoy the small moments when an object moves when you aren't expecting it to. On top of that, they have made the enemy AI smarter, so don't be surprised if you see more of them try to flank you. And although the friendly AI may be better now too, I did still experience some moments where Ellie thought she was invisible directly in front of enemies.
Kid, what the hell do you think you're doing?
If you want to be invisible yourself, then you can almost practically experience that on the easiest difficulty with some of the new settings and accessibility options that they provide. There are a large span of settings to choose from now, and from what I can tell, this may be one of the best games in terms of how many accessibility options they provide for players. They even added a vibration setting to match dialogue so that deaf players can feel the way a line is delivered. All of these new options are great additions for the game, but I will have to admit I did find myself still hoping for a little bit more in terms of fully utilizing the PS5's DualSense capabilities. I still have to say that Ghost of Tsushima takes a cake for me at least when it comes to using the controller's haptic feedback features. The amount of gameplay modifiers they've added have been pretty fun to play with as well though, and it can be a great way to play through the game in a completely different way. Infinite ammo and crafting? Why not? Explosive rainbow arrows?
Oh yeah!
And let's not forget about some of the funny voice modifier options as well if you want to hear Ellie or any other character sound like they just sucked a bunch of helium out of a balloon.
The frustrated cannibal threw up his hands.
They of course have added new game modes too, including the permadeath mode and the speedrun mode, which can combo well with a lot of these gameplay modifiers. However, they didn't add any trophies for these game modes and also removed the difficulty related trophies too, so while it may be easier to platinum the game now, there isn't as much of an incentive to start new playthroughs on harder difficulties or grind on the new game modes. Aside from that, the other notable changes they made is mainly improving the photo mode and providing better tracking with collectibles within the game. Now unfortunately, there are a few features that are missing from the game that impact its replay value. The first most noticeable one is the fact that there isn't any multiplayer, which was one of the most fun experiences I enjoyed when I played the remastered version. I do understand they are focusing more on a separate multiplayer game for the series at the moment though, so I'd like to think that it will be that much better once it comes out. However, it would have been nice if they added any multiplayer features too. Even just adding a speedrun leaderboard to compete with friends and other Last of Us fans would have been a big selling point for the game, and replaying it multiple times on different modes, especially since there are no trophies that you can earn by completing the new game modes they added. Another missing feature is the fact that the combat mechanics are still largely the same, so although they may have improved the AI and interactivity of the environment, it still mostly plays more like a remastered game to me versus a full-blown remake. This is especially more evident when you hold remakes to the same standard as games like Resident Evil 2, given how much Capcom completely overhauled the game's original combat mechanics. And while The Last of Us Part 1 technically meets the definition of being a remake, it does blur the lines a little between what should be considered a remake versus a remaster from a player perspective. And going forward, I genuinely hope that the industry continues to hold remakes to the same standard as what Capcom did with Resident Evil 2 and 3. So to summarize, there are a lot of great additions and improvements that have been made to the game that lets it stand out compared to its predecessors. However, there are a few missing features that would have been essential in creating more replay value for the game too, so whether the game is worth buying or not depends on if you have played any of the other prior ones before. If you've never played any of the Last of Us games, then it's an easy 10 out of 10 rating and recommendation just given how exceptional this game is compared to others, especially when it comes to its storytelling and characters. I'd also say it's still worth buying the PS5 remake if you've only played the original PS3 game, but I would give it a 9 out of 10 rating instead and how much value it can add for players in this case. However, if you have played the PS4 remastered version of the game, then it does make it a little bit harder to justify spending $70 to get this one, since the PS4 version already did a great job on the graphics, and this remake largely focused on rebuilding its graphics instead of its combat mechanics. Consequently, for anyone that has played the PS4 version, I would have to rate this remake as a 6.5 out of 10 in terms of how much value you can get out of the game given the missing features I mentioned earlier. So it may not be worth the $70 at least for players in this case, unless you are just that big of a fan of the series or have the money and just want something else to play. On the other hand, if they add any features in future updates that increase the replay value of the game, then I would definitely consider a higher rating in this case. But with that said, if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe to follow along for more videos like this. But as always, until next time, happy gaming!